Good tidings and welcome, fellow seekers of truth and love and authenticity. How the heck are you? This was a very, very intense week, culminating, of course, tomorrow with the full moon in Pisces, which I'm actually very excited about because, as we always have to focus upon in these changing times, moving out of the Piscean age into the Aquarian age, obviously over the course of a couple of hundred years, when we have a full moon in Pisces, which of course does represent culmination, endings, release, under that energy, it does sort of symbolize a massive release of another aspect of that victimhood, Piscean, submissive faith, structured faith, as in religion, so on and so forth. It's a leveling up from all of those restrictions and distortions. The shadow, essentially. Of course, we have a bunch of other things. We have Venus in square to Saturn and Uranus, but we'll focus mostly on, well, actually both of those are very electrified. Venus in Scorpio, Saturn in Aquarius, Uranus in Taurus. We have a grand trine in air. We have Mercury going retrograde, if that is something that you wish to focus on. As I've said to you before, it's not that I don't have any observations upon Mercury retrograde. It's just that Mercury retrograde in the greater collective vernacular has been reduced to this idea of bad luck or no forward movement on any level, when in fact what it is it's an opportunity to reassess communication, interconnectedness in specific areas, right? So, thanks for sharing. My revolting West Hollywood neighbors. There's so many, they're so grotesque, honestly, these people. I mean, again, you're seeing that live. That's my inability to rise above and find love and understanding and compassion for people. But it's really hard, right? It's really hard. Like, people are just awful. Unawake people, superficial people, people consumed by such nonsense. People who basically are consumed by tickling their own clits. Sorry if you don't like that language. I don't give a shit, actually. Because that's what it is. It's just self-masturbatory crap that we are surrounded by, and revolting people. And of course, it would stand to reason that I would live in the epicenter of that nightmare. Go figure. And one of the things that we have, of course, come to an understanding of in ourselves on this journey is that we move much quicker through these moments of collapse of our ability to stay grounded, centered, spiritually driven. It's not always easy, but we do it much quicker. And there is actually a central focus to our reading on pleasure, and probably the reckoning with this Pisces full moon is releasing the sense that in order to be spiritual, we have to suffer in some way, or we have to deprive ourselves in some way. I was talking about Venus squaring Saturn energy and Uranus. So, Venus in Scorpio, it's not the easiest place for Venus, but it's also not a terrible place for it. It's just that Scorpio does represent passion and sexuality, but it also represents the underworld. It represents, when I say, actually, it doesn't represent the underworld. That's my projection of what the darker side of Scorpio is. It really is a shadow that is the great mystery of revelation and self-exploratory understanding. Which feels like an underworld, right? At times, particularly when in square. So, and Saturn is, of course, restrictive, but this square presents a tension for the ability to move beyond those restrictions. Again, interpret that how you will in your individual circumstances, but that's also a big energy this week. There are other aspects that are relatively significant as well, but I don't want to spend like too long on astrology because the cards really tell the narrative for us, whether we are understanding the planetary alignments or not. And so therefore I'm going to move right into that because we do have quite a few cards. Just so you know, this week I was pulling the Spirit Animal Oracle cards. We got 3. Obviously, I'm not going to read all 3 because that takes up a lot of time. I'm going to read the first one that came out and then the 2 that were behind it, sort of give us more of an indication of how to achieve the goal of the main card. In fact, all of our oracle cards are essentially indicators and don't really require quite as much deep contemplation as they might normally. And in terms of our actual spread, there's a beautiful kind of arc in the tarot that shows us the journey of our empowerment in these changing times. And our Osho Zen tarot cards clarify those pretty much in almost like a going from being anchored in a timeline to something that is beyond time and space. Of course, this is always the case for us on this journey, but this is perhaps more an indication that this week, with this full moon in Pisces, that enormous release of an emotional shadow, there's a leveling up that requires of us to hold space for something that's unknown. So, yeah. Let's get right into it. Our Spirit Animal Oracle card of the week, well, our primary one, is Dog Spirit. Be loyal to what you love. Sorry, I'm like reading it backwards. Be loyal to what you love. Number 19. I don't remember ever having Dog Spirit. Let's see. Dog Spirit appears to remind you that although change is a part of life and all of us are meant to evolve, our love and commitments remain strong. You are loved now and can trust that this higher love is true. Spirit loves you, and love has arrived in many forms now, manifesting in the people you surround yourself with, expressed uniquely through them. Dog Spirit also says to be true to that which you love. For now is a time of good fortune. Be steady as you recognize that people and things are always transforming. Your heart is loving and true, and Dog Spirit wants you to know that your steadfast commitment to experiencing and expressing love will attract and manifest more love. You deserve all of it. Have faith in Spirit's plan for you. And, you know, a full moon in Pisces is very much about that. It's the opportunity for us to set intentionality in letting go of the heartache, heartbreak, the darkening of our heart energy source, you know. The sun is that energy of love, of all energy, but also love, you know. It comes via Venus, right? That's how those frequencies shift. So and even if you watch this after the full moon, it's totally fine because the energy of the full moon really like permeates strongly for at least 3 days on either side of the full moon, and much longer than that, up to 2 weeks in its aftermath. So set those intentions of what it is that gets in the way of the flow of love in your life, right? That's very important with this. Recognize where you are still anchored in a victim identity. It's not to diminish the importance of what could have caused you to feel that way, but this is an opportunity to release that without the intellectual and psychological turmoil that could entail at a different time. We kind of get like a major boost of galactic energy to sort of do a transcendental shedding. Loyalty to people and situations can turn into attachment that results in stagnation, enmeshment, and loss of integrity. Do you fear what will happen if you let a relationship evolve? Because this is the shadow side of that, you know. Some people will be letting things in, other people will be letting go of things. Sometimes it can be a little bit of both, you know. Do you fear what will happen if you let a relationship evolve? Are you afraid that asking for a situation to change will make others see you as disloyal? Trust that when dog spirit appears, you are meant to accept the turning of the wheel of life and the changing of fortunes. If you feel you are being betrayed or are growing apart from someone, let dog spirit reconnect you with that commitment to love in all its forms. Perhaps a relationship is meant to evolve. Perhaps you are meant to evolve too, so that you can experience the growth for which your soul yearns. Your greatest loyalty is to love, so be open to all of its many guises, including self-love. You deserve the best, and that is what Spirit wants for you. And there can be no love for those around us or for things outside of ourselves if we don't practice self-love. So again, there is a strong focus on that this week in this reading. Our subsequent clarifiers for that dog spirit energy are the following. Sandpiper spirit, be playful. And whale spirit, trust the great mystery. Enzo is trusting the great mystery by doing great. Yes, what is happening? What? Are you okay? What happened? At the center of our oracle cards, we have a very important theme, one that we neglect very often, and I can certainly say that in the last 2 weeks, I have neglected it immensely, or only like sort of done a grab bag. I can't even speak. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like, you know, sort of grasping. That's what I'm trying to say. Grasping for moments of pleasure, which is very outside of time and space. We would be floating in it all the time, right? But unfortunately, when we get so anchored in the 3D and in our materialistic pursuits, it's, you know, out of survival a lot of the time, given the fact that it's not like our economies anywhere in the world are really doing that well. So even if you're earning a decent living, you know, we have 5.4% inflation here in the United States, something that has been unheard of. It's all a narrative anyway, right? You start like talking about inflation and people start like, you know, rather than actually question corporations for why they rape the fuck out of our bank accounts for profit, we start blaming it on concepts like inflation. But it is like a crunch, you know? Like, it's very expensive to live in these times, which just is an absurdity within itself, right? I mean, think about that. Anyway, here's your card, pleasure. And I will read the message from pleasure, and I suggest you contemplate that image while I do so, because, you know, it's a gateway to something. You have to be willing to follow that path. And so it's not a good idea for you to come up here at all. There's candles. Represented by the luscious meadow and then some. Meadows are usually open, sunny places where flora and fauna thrive and flourish. They are havens, as the trees surrounding the meadow offer protection and shade for the grassy area. Traditionally, they are associated with openness, gentle calm, and relaxation. They are places where the weary traveler can stop and rest to renew his spirit. A meadow is a place where people as well as animals gather to enjoy the simple pleasures of life. Savor your life, each and every part of it. Take pleasure in slowing down and experiencing each of your senses. Isn't that amazing when you think about that? How often do we actually take the time to experience whatever moment we're having through all of our conscious senses, right? Or subconscious senses if we're not paying attention to them, right? So think about that. Maybe just take one moment, like when you're having, offer yourself a meal that you really find delicious, like your favorite food or your favorite music or your, favorite time of day, bath time, whatever it is, lighting candles and putting soft music on and, having that moment, but pay attention to all of it. What's happening with your taste buds, what's happening with your hearing, your sense of your sight, your, touching the water or your skin or whatever, it's like these things, when we are aware of all of those, we actually then have the ability to level up and move into our undefined senses. Where was I? Savor your life, each and every part of it. Take pleasure in slowing down and experiencing each of your senses. Taste your food with full gusto. Inhale the scents of the world around you. Enjoy the colors and textures of your life. This is truly a stop and smell the roses card. Embrace your sensuality. Move in a languid way. Let pleasure be your password into every intimate part of your life. Allow your life to be less about being productive and more about enjoying each moment with verve, and a radiant energy will flow through you in all directions of your life. And fortunately for me, I actually have physical circumstances that will allow me, hopefully, to do that a little bit more, because because at work I have some circumstances that will temporarily alleviate a certain amount of structure for, a week or so. So I will be focused on doing that myself too. What is our Sufi Wisdom Oracle card this week? I didn't even look at it, but it fits perfectly. Look, slow down to relax. Break to enjoy the beauty around you. I always find the artwork so interesting in this because it never really not logically, but it doesn't really conjure the image of what the message is. And then if you really focus on it and you start, you allow your mind to wander, you sort of start understanding what the image represents, right? Well, that's certainly how it works for me. There's always something slightly hypnotic about these images, as if you're meant to stare at them for hours on end. Rumi tells us the following in his usual beautiful poetry. Patience is not just sitting and waiting, it is visioning. It is looking at the thorn and seeing the rose, looking at the night and seeing the day. Lovers are patient and know that even the moon needs time to become full. Ironic, considering it will be full, right? There are times when we feel weary, drained, and fatigued. Everything seems to be moving at its normal pace, yet our usual energy drive and motivation take a bit of a dive. This is when our body and soul are telling us to slow down, take care, and not burn ourselves out. The time has arrived to sit back, relax, and focus on foreseeing the future. And I really did have that this weekend. I mean, I have had to work all weekend in some capacity or another, but at the same time, I had to just take moments where I did nothing. In fact, yesterday I even took a half-hour power nap, so sometimes it's necessary. Rumi carries a powerful message. Turn your focus inward and toward your spiritual development. You are being called to slow down, to see more of the beauty around you. Rumi wants you to realize, if you haven't already, that the power is within you and you can create anything you wish. All the answers you have been looking for are revealing themselves to you now. But first you must make the time to connect with the inner source of your divine power. By quieting your mind, not only will you be able to see things more clearly and less reactively, but the spaces in your mind may bring forth some amazing insights. Always a full moon aspect too. Whether it is a past life pattern or something you have learned, it is time to set yourself free, so you may live more creatively and step into your true power. And it really does feel like that with this full moon in Pisces. The level of release is quite extraordinary. It's an opportunity to consciously resolve matters that have been heavy, or to consciously resign ourselves to eradicating aspects of our shadow from our manifested narrative. The mantra is the following: I am determined to fill more of my time with peace and to relax for as long as I need to renew. Okay, where are we at? 22 minutes. Oh, excellent. Look, we're moving this along. What are we coming out of? Okay, this is where we've been. The Strength card, which is Leonine energy, but in this case I feel that there was a strong pull on us to have to conjure an enormous amount of strength in the last couple of weeks. Really push ourselves to the limit in terms of our capacity to channel the strength required to level up, to give us this platform for the next part of our life journey, whether that be professional, emotional, psychological, spiritual. This is it. It's we've done an enormous amount of work, and you have to acknowledge that. That's part of this pleasure, slow down to relax, trust the great mystery, be loyal to what you love, be playful. All of that is, in essence, what we have graduated to, what we have earned the right to after doing so much work. And I'm sure you'll agree that we have been doing more work than we can possibly imagine to get to where we are. And sometimes it's actually felt in recent times that I've been sucked so far back down into 3D living that I've almost thought that perhaps everything was in vain, and it did feel like that, but I'm seeing now, I haven't really fully started experiencing it all, actually, but I know it's on the horizon, I can sense it's on the horizon, that there is now, as long as we remain organized and maintain our focus, no, baby, you can come and sit here, okay. There is a, an opportunity to experience something very different. I mean, there are a lot of astrologers who currently, and not just astrologers, but psychics too, who see this week as a major shift in consciousness. Okay. Good boy. There we go. There we go, baby. And that came out with the, sorry, I had it in my hand, with the Empress. So again, through all, this is the confirmation of that, through all of that hard work came fertility, fruitfulness, expansion, growth, opportunity. Of course, with the Empress, we're talking about a divine feminine energy, which is interesting because I do remember recently having a reading that was very heavily focused around Emperor energy, and I do think that that's part of what's happening right now, is that the pendulum is swinging back into a divine feminine energy flow. And one moment, because unfortunately at the moment I really do have to delete. Crazy people. Yes, my baby boy. I love you. I know. I mean, you know, Enzo needs attention. I'm sorry. Sorry for the distraction. I mean, maybe that is the Empress energy coming through to inform us all of what that means. Our Osho Zen card that clarifies this for us. Baby, I cannot have you up here, Enzo, while I'm doing this. I'm very, very sorry. Why do you have to keep coming back up? Okay. You really are determined. Okay, fine. You come here, but let me read, okay? The clarifier is clinging to the past, which is the Five of Cups. Enzo. Okay. I can't, well, I'm going to hold it up for you right now so that you can see that. But I can't hold it up and read it because I have to keep Enzo away from the... You can go over here. The figure pictured in this card is so preoccupied with clutching her box of memories that she has turned her back on the sparkling champagne glass of blessings available to her in the here and now. Her nostalgia for the past really makes her a blockhead and a beggar, besides, as we can see from her patched and ragged clothes. I'll show it to you again once I'm finished reading. She needn't be a beggar, of course, but she is not available to taste the pleasures that offer themselves in the present. It's time to face up to the fact that the past is gone, and any effort to repeat it is as sure a way to stay stuck in old blueprints that you would have already outgrown if you hadn't been so busy clinging to what you have already been through. Take a deep breath, put the box down, tie it up in a pretty ribbon if you must, and bid it a fond and reverent farewell. Life is passing you by, and you're in danger of becoming an old fossil before your time. So here's that full moon in Pisces again, releasing, and I really think that the people I work with don't think that I have any entitlement to a life, and I gotta address that energetically. These tenses, past, present, and future, are not the tenses of time. They are tenses of the mind. That which is no longer before the mind becomes the past. That which is before the mind is the present, and that which is going to be before the mind is the future. Past is that which is no longer before you. Future is that which is not yet before you, and present is that which is before you and is slipping out of your sight. Soon it will be past. If you don't cling to the past, because clinging to the past is absolute stupidity. It is no longer there, so you are crying for spilled milk. What is gone is gone. And don't cling to the present, because that is also going, and soon it will be past. Don't cling to the future, hopes, imaginations, plans for tomorrow, because tomorrow will become today, will become yesterday. Everything is going to become yesterday. Everything is going to go out of your hands. Clinging will simply create misery. You will have to let go. So, strong emphasis on what that means, what this release means. I'm trying to channel into this because the King of Cups is our present card. I mean, before I move forward, you do see the correlation right there with that energy of strength, pushing through all that we've pushed through into opportunity and growth and expansion and a wealth of newness that we can choose to embrace, or we can get stuck in this. And there is really very much a leveling up available to us to move beyond clinging to the past. But that also means that there's just as much opportunity to do the opposite and to repeat the same karmic cycle right now. So think about that in what you're doing. Do you see where you could repeat the same karmic pattern? And, none of us is in the position to decide that we're not going to work anymore, or that we're not going to be a part of whatever structure we're in, or some people might, but the vast majority of us need to provide ourselves with stability and security in some shape or form right now. So then it comes down to how you go about things in your life. And that you are entirely able to adjust. Your approach, So, unfortunately, I'm recording this directly into YouTube, so I can't actually pause this as I would under other circumstances. Otherwise, it breaks it down into different chapters, and I don't want to do that because then I have to upload 2 separate videos, and I know how that works. Because then people watch one and not the other, and then it doesn't really work. So anyway, I am grateful for you indulging me as I have to deal with crazy people at work not respecting my time. So that King of Cups is, I'm going to give you the clarifier right up front because maybe that actually gives us some insight. It certainly gives me some insight into my current circumstances, which is going with the flow. And of course I will read Going with the Flow for us. But the King of Cups is essentially telling us that journey, that opportunity that we just talked about of the energy that we've been in, that we're coming out of, graduating out of, has put us into the position of being the King of Cups. And the King of Cups is master of his emotions. In other words, he is in the position then knows how to handle his emotions. In other words, like in this situation right now, I cannot take responsibility for everybody else's actions, and so there's a point when I'm doing something for myself or for the people that I am speaking to right now, I have to be able to say, okay, well, sorry, that's not my call, you need to sort that out. You know, that is coming from a place of emotional empowerment, because rather than being in the position of getting annoyed and frustrated that people are not living up to expectations and not carrying their own part of their responsibilities, it's the opportunity to let them take responsibility, right? So that is an aspect of that. Of course, for us, we're talking about probably things that are way bigger than that, but perhaps that's the trickle down effect of that, is that you start with those small things of being able to say, look, I am in my emotional power here. I don't need to be triggered in either direction. I can stay centered in everything that I experience, which is going to therefore eliminate drama. It's going to eliminate chaos. It's going to eliminate consequence, because then in turn, perhaps the other person will retort with some form of projection, because a lot of people do that when you don't take on their responsibility, they lash out. And if they do, again, our choice is in how we respond to that. I have learned that intensely in recent times, because where I work there's a lot of peripheral drama and a lot of grandstanding and it's not so much backstabbing, but it is a lot of things that don't necessarily get communicated in ways that are helpful to the growth of all. So subsequently, I am learning not to be triggered by the way I'm spoken to, the way that I'm directed, the aspects that could be very ego-driven of differentiating between what my responsibilities are and where I have to self-manage and where I have to be open to being told quite abruptly on many an occasion what to do. And that requires a certain amount of stamina, strength, and self-knowledge and emotion. And when I say self-knowledge, I mean emotional self-knowledge. That is what the King of Cups is. So where is that in your world? And how can you facilitate the flow so that you can go with the flow yourself as much as possible? So let's read Going with the Flow, as it is at the very center of our reading, and it sort of taps into the subconscious aspects of our minds. I should probably be looking at the right book to find those answers. Going with the flow. What is going with the flow? It is the Ace of Cups. Also very nice. That is a strong indication of staying emotionally open as well. You know, the Ace of Cups in conjunction with the King of Cups is basically saying he has his cup, it's full, he can take anything. When I say take, I don't mean take it for himself. I mean, he can withstand anything, he can endure anything. He doesn't have to endure it. He will still stay in his emotional security and knowledge and power and wisdom and impart that wisdom with others, leading by example. But he also, having reached that point, is ready for a new emotional experience. That Ace of Cups that comes in. The figure in this card is completely relaxed and at ease in the water, letting it take him where it will. He has mastered the art of being passive and receptive without being dull or sleepy. He is just available to the currents of life, with never a thought of saying, I don't like that, or I prefer to go the other way. Every moment in life, we have a choice whether to enter life's waters and float, or to try to swim upstream. When this card appears in a reading, it is an indication that you are able to float now, trusting that life will support you in your relaxation and take you exactly where it wants you to go. Allow this feeling of trust and relaxation to grow more and more. Everything is happening exactly as it should. When I say become water, I mean become a flow. Don't remain stagnant. Move, and move like water, remembering that water is, of course, represents our emotions. So think about that. Lao Tzu says the way of the Tao is a watercourse way. It moves like water. What is the movement of water, or of a river? The movement has a few beautiful things about it. One, it always moves towards the depth. It always searches for the lowest ground. It is non-ambitious. It never hankers to be the first. It wants to be the last. Remember, Jesus says, those who are the last here will be the first in my kingdom of God. He is talking about the watercourse way of Tao, not mentioning it, but talking about it. Be the last, be non-ambitious. Ambition means going uphill. Water goes down, it searches for the lowest ground. It wants to be a non-entity. It does not want to declare itself unique, exceptional, extraordinary. It has no ego idea. And I suppose that's it, right? When you have emotional wisdom and inner security, you can go with the flow. You don't have to invest egoically in a struggle to reach for more, because you know that you carry it all within yourself. Of course, there's always a fine-tuning of that. That's the essence of life, right? As in our human existence, is that we have the opportunity to hone our spiritual soul skills, right, as humans, through the ebb and flow of life, trial and tribulation, experience, love, joy, but also pain and suffering. And the idea is that the closer we get to being non-egoic, the more we're in the position where we don't have to experience pain and suffering. Moving on to our outcome, again, it really literally just builds on that same concept. We have our major arcana, the High Priestess, strong encouragement towards our spiritual selves and our spiritual practice in this process, as we are open emotionally with that knowledge of having both the Empress energy of fertility, letting go of the past, the strength assimilated within us into our experiences, into an emotional master. It allows us into that flow and reopens ourselves to the fullness of the embodiment of our spiritual transcendental capacity. And I don't really need to speak much further on the High Priestess, because it's who you are at the very core. You just, like me, sometimes get caught up in materialism and things that don't actually center around that, and then you might lose your way for a little bit, and then you come back to it, right? Well, we're coming back to it in full force here. And the way we do so is through Osho's experiencing card, which is the Three of Wands, which in traditional tarot is waiting for our ships to come in. It's when we've done the work and then we are reaping the rewards. So in experiencing, that's essentially the same thing. It's just a different perspective on it, right? So let's see what experiencing offers us in this reading. And this will be our sort of our summarizing of our future energies. An experience is something that can be filed away in a notebook or captured on film and pasted into an album. Experiencing is the feeling of wonder itself, the thrill of communion, the gentle touch of our connectedness with all that surrounds us. And just in case I wasn't emphasizing that in the way that I read that, it's experience versus experiencing, right? The woman in this card is not just touching the tree, she is in communion with it. She has almost become one with it. It is an old tree and has seen many hard times. Her touch is gentle, reverent, and the white on the inside of her cape reflects the purity of her heart. She is humble, simple, and that is the right way to approach nature. Nature doesn't bang any drums when it bursts forth into flower, nor play any dirges when the trees let go of their leaves in the fall. But when we approach her in the right spirit, she has many secrets to share. If you haven't heard nature whispering to you lately, now is a good time to give her the opportunity. I mean, what an amazing card to have in conjunction with the High Priestess, right? You just look around, look into the eyes of a child or into the eyes of your beloved, your mother, your friend, or just feel a tree. Have you ever hugged a tree? Hug a tree, and one day you will come to know that it is not only that you have hugged the tree, but that the tree also responds. The tree also hugs you. And all trees, because they're all linked through Earth via the root system, right? Then for the first time, you will be able to know that the tree is not just the form. It is not just a certain species the botanists talk about. It is an unknown god, so green in your courtyard, so full of flowers in your courtyard, so close to you, beckoning you, calling you again and again. Experiencing. That's it. I wish you a fantastic week to come. I hope that all of this makes sense and comes to fruition in a way that you consciously experience. If not, come back at the end of the week, not necessarily to watch my reading, but you could do that, but just to yourself, to see how this all played out for you. And if anything, at least allow this to be a directive, because I don't see that there's anything that you could lose by doing these things, right? On that note, I love you. I don't know what that was, but it was funny. Bye.